The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein, former publisher of Automotive News, is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.
Welcome to SiriusXM's Cars and Culture. I'm your host, Jason Stein. The auto industry is full of talk of startup brands. There are the obvious entries in the market, the Rivians, Lucid, Polestar, all electric names that are filling driveways across the country. But what about a throwback name to really generate excitement? How about digging back in time and pulling forward an iconic brand that demands attention because of the cult following, the passion, and the electricity behind another electric? What about Scout? It's as Americana as it gets, despite being owned by a German company. VW Group acquired the rights to it when its Triton truck unit acquired Navistar International Corp in 2021. Today, it's being revived by an American named Scott Keogh, who has held various roles within Volkswagen Group, most recently as the head of American operations. About a year ago, he left that role to take on what he describes as the dream of a lifetime. At Scout, Keogh can play entrepreneur, business leader, and architect of a totally new direction for a brand. In announcing the creation of the Scout brand last May, VW said the automaker's plan was to build a separate, independent company to operate the brand, sharing a sketch of a future battery electric SUV and pickup. Those who remember Scout in America know the brand for its cult following. Made famous by truck and tractor maker International Harvester in the 1960s and 70s, the International Harvester Scout was an off-road vehicle produced by International Harvester from 1961 to 1980. A precursor of more sophisticated SUVs to come, it was created as a competitor to the Jeep and initially featured a fold-down windshield. They were and are icons, but by 1980, production was done. Now, nearly 50 years later, it's back, and with more energy behind it than ever. The Scout moniker will return on an electric SUV and pickup truck designed for the American market, with production planned for 2026. VW is building a plant in South Carolina, and there's a product plan, a design team, and a lot of momentum. Today, Scott Keogh shares the Scout story, from being employee number one to now building a team and reigniting a brand. Scout and all of the culture behind that brand today on Cars and Culture.
Hi, I'm Scott Keogh, and I'm on Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
It's good to see him again. It's good to see him in a different capacity, in a very unique capacity, which we're going to get into. But I want to start with the fact that I think if you're now the head of Scout, you've just got to be cool, don't you? Isn't that the prerequisite? You got to be cool, a little rugged, very, very different than these previous roles I've seen you in, Scott. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah, I think you got to be a little crazy too, to go from a big established company to a startup. So yeah, I'd say cool crazy would work for me.
Yeah, but if you're a startup, though, all startup guys are considered to be on the cutting edge, and they're hip, and maybe they have black glasses they wear now. You never know. I even wore a T-shirt for this interview so that I just felt more cool.
Yeah, you got a black one on too, so it's working for you, 100%.
Yeah. How's it going? Let's start there.
It's going well. There's some things you can anticipate, and some things are just every day's a new day when you wake up at this thing. Overall, good. I think, look, if you think big picture, what are the three big pieces we're trying to work on? First and foremost, you want to establish a company and a culture, and it's happening. We're hiring. We're up to 100 employees now, so we're getting some good momentum. I love each and every one of them. They're just great. The second thing is we're engineering a crazy cool product, and that's on the way. And of course, it's all plans. It's all in the early phases, but it's coming along nice. And then, of course, you need a place to build it. So I think you've seen our announcement. We announced a couple of months ago now down in South Carolina, Columbia, you have a factory. So the big pieces are moving. But as you can imagine, it's every day's something exploding, something's happening. So it's never ending. But frankly, I love it. It's exciting. It's the best job I've ever had. So I dig it.
I mean, when you are starting out and you have a blank sheet of paper, and I want to go back to kind of the first day that you had that blank sheet of paper, how do you start a car company from scratch?
Well, you're right. Day one was literally me. And so, as you can imagine, my former position was 20 plus thousand employees, two factories, a big
Right.
machine. Every time you turn, someone was there to help you. And then, all of a sudden, you're at a WeWork in Tyson's kind of figuring things out. So, look, like everything, I think, as you know, I'm a big mountain climber. And, all hikes, of course, start somewhere. And usually they start at a base, or they start in a parking lot and they go somewhere, and you look up and you see a mountain that's, 14, 15, 16,000 feet. And they all begin the same way with the first step and keep going. And that's sort of what this was. You hire a few people, you get them on board, and you get the project moving. And that's what we've been doing. So it's actually been fun, but the beginning was certainly daunting, like a mountain.
What's the first priority when you are climbing that mountain? Is it getting, I mean, I'm guessing being part of a German company, it's getting the plan in place and working the plan. But what were your top 5 priorities?
Yeah, look, number one, without a doubt, and this has been the biggest challenge, is you need a team. Yeah, you can climb a mountain by yourself, but you can't build a car and a company by yourself. So that's clearly. And I think one of the biggest issues is, look, I think in a normal position when you're working or running or managing an existing company, is human resources, whatever topics maybe 5 to 10%, right? There may be some positions you need to fill, some adjustments you need to make. This is 99.9% you need to hire. So you're talking about 60 to 70% of your time hiring people, speaking to people, presenting the story, and going. So that, without a doubt, was priority number one. I think the second thing, of course, is we had begun some early work on the product, so needed to keep that moving and keep that going. As I said before, we need a place to build it. We looked at a lot of different ways to manufacture this car, and I think we got there. The fourth one, of course, tied to the company is, of course, you need to put the systems in place. Very basic things like, how do you pay people, healthcare, car programs, and all of that. And then the final piece, of course, is I would say, in no particular order, is of course you want to have a culture. Is this a place people want to be? And I think you put all those things together. That was my priorities. But I think within about, let's say, 30 to 60 days, we started to have a team on board. And then with the team, we started to get more rigor and more training, and away we went. But certainly hiring and staffing was number one, and still is.
Well, and you just made a big hire. You announced that Chris Benjamin was joining your company as chief design officer, because every car company needs a designer. When we talk about
details, sure.
tiny details, exactly. Yeah, and he's described as the steward of the iconic Scout design, and will oversee the interior, exterior design, concept cars, user experience. And Chris is just one. If you go to the Scout website, I counted about 75 to 80 openings right now. Is that accurate?
There's actually I think 105. I just saw Chris about an hour ago. We just did an update on some different HR things. So exactly. If you're looking to work for a really cool company that's trying to do great things, definitely we got some cool jobs. But you're right. I think there's 100 plus out there.
You're right about the attention to making sure that you have the right personnel in place, and how much time that takes. Tell me the time-consuming element of building that right culture and finding the right people for a culture of a brand that exists in some form but doesn't yet exist in totality because you're only just creating it.
Yeah, I think the first thing, the mindset has to be there without a doubt. So if you look at the culture, we came up with a relatively simple rallying cry early on. We stumbled across it a little bit, and we're looking at some different things. And the agency just sort of had this phenomenal image of an old Scout. It was, out doing its thing out there. And it said, the world needs more Scouts. And it's just one of the things we all sort of looked at each other and we said, perfect. It's a call to arms, which you like. Of course, it's true. The world does need more Scouts. Of course, we need more Scouts to come work for the company. We need more people to buy the products when we have it on the road. So it was a great rallying cry. So if I think of the type of people that are being drawn, they sort of come at it from a different angle, but all the same thing. Some people want to restore an American icon. They said, this is an iconic brand, never should have gone out of business. It deserves its day in the sun again, and I want to do it. There's a bunch of people who are coming at it from the startup angle. It's not so much about Scouts to them. It's like they want to be part of a startup and the action and making it happen. there's a lot of people who have a profound, faith, and this is a time to build things again in America. And what better brand to come back and build things in America and do it? So everyone's coming at it from a different angle, but it's all rallying around someone who likes a bit of adventure, committed to grit, and committed to what I call this American moment. And I don't mean that in any over-the-top statement. I think we have an American moment in our hands in terms of industrialization, in terms of electrification, in terms of building things again in America. And Scout, I think, is honestly the ultimate manifestation of this American moment. And I love being part of it, and the team does.
When was it interesting for you?
It's been interesting from pretty much the day it started to first, pop around. I think most ideas in life come a little bit of necessity, a little bit of inspiration, and then maybe a little bit of luck. You put those things together, that's how these kind of things happen. I think the necessity is quite well known. The group obviously wants to focus on this region. It wants to see what 10 points of market share looks like. I think if you look at Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche, it gets you somewhere, but we want to get further, and we think Scout can do that. I think if you look at the group's strength in Europe, 16, 17 points of market share, 20 points of market share in China. In the U.S., it's around 4 or 5 points of share. So that's the necessity part of it. And I think, look, it's exacerbated now with all the geopolitical angles and everything you're quite aware of, Jason. And then you topped it off with the inspiration. And I think the inspiration sort of came from a couple places. One was a publication pretty well. Automotive News wrote an article. I forget who the author was. And it sort of said, pretty cool. If you look at Navistar, you look below it, this could give, some instant cool credibility. And then the final piece that hit me, it was during COVID and the chaos and everything else. I was taking the kids to the beach, and it was just one of those perfect moments, sand dune. You couldn't picture it if you designed it. And there was this orange Scout 2, and it just sat there, and I said, good Lord, man, this car's killer. This thing is just killer. We got to bring it back. And then, away we go. And then it was a process, and obviously a lot of processes, but, here we are. It's being executed, and it's cool.
How much did you personally know about the brand before you got involved?
Oh, I know a lot more now, but let's say I knew it at a very superficial level, probably like everyone else was. That's a cool car. And there was always this sort of mystery, like an onion you wanted to peel a little bit more of like, what happened? Then, of course, you did a little investigation and tried to figure it out. Then, of course, once I started getting into it, the sort of iconic Scout encyclopedia. So, of course, I took a long look at that. And then as we started to build a team, everyone sort of read that. And then once you start getting deep, and then you go. I went to a couple of these harvester festivals. I've been introduced to a lot of, let's say, the believers, if you will. And now I'm getting, obviously more and more deeply ingrained into it. I think it's an important thing because no, we don't want to launch a product that says, hey, it's the 70s again in America. It's that 70s show and do a complete retro play. I think we have something
right.
far more profound that we can do there. However, you really want to pay respect to all of the people and all of the dreamers and all of the workers that made this happen so long ago. And I think a word we've been very important to us, because I think the first thing you have to clear is this credible? No one wants to see some posery, wannabe, kind of watered down thing. It's like, no, let's make this thing the real deal. Let's make it credible. Once you have the credibility factor, then you can do all the cool things, technology and brand stories and everything else. So we're taking this profoundly seriously. There's no other way to take it, but that's what we're doing.
So in what way, beyond the festivals that you attended, in what way did you ingratiate yourself or become more ingrained in what Scout is?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I'm a Scout expert.
Obviously, read the books. I, of course, went and toured the factory. I spent a lot of time in the archives and climbed that all around and got a feel for it. And then you get out about across in America. I think a good example is Sean Barber, a guy you probably know. He's got a shop up in Ventura, does a great job of restoring these cars. I spent a lot of time with him. The other gentleman, I won't give his name, but he's sort of restoring my Scout 2 right now. I don't want to, give him too much exposure, but he's here in LA. And, Yeah, you drive them, you talk to people, you spend time with them. It's not a complicated thing. You just have to commit the time to do it. And that's exactly what we've been doing and actually what the team's been doing. I think the other thing, of course, is one of the first hires we made, and a gentleman you know quite well is Chris Stahl. And yeah, his job is community. Get out there, get the insights, away we go. Some of the other things we've done with our engineers and our designers is we send them out to events and sort of see how these cars are used and how these cars are brought to life. So no, I think we've done a good job. The other thing I was super proud of, as you probably heard or may not have, we clinicked the concept cars. We clinicked them in Dallas and we clinicked them in California. And the very first people to see the cars, honestly, was a group of, it was around 9 or 10 basically scout enthusiasts from the community. So before we did the 400, the 500 folks groups and everyone else and all the usual sheets that you fill out, we wanted to get their reaction. And then we went out and, we drank some margaritas and we talked about the car and what they liked and disliked. So the kind of stuff, honestly, you'd never do in a more traditional kind of setup. And it was great to get the feedback. So no, I loved it. And I try to do as much of it as possible.
Personify the scout buyer for me. Do they know the mark already, or are you trying to reach deeper than enthusiasts?
We're going to reach deeper. Without a doubt, we're going to do it. So I think, look, our initial research, which was strong, was about 30% of the car buying public says, I've heard of Scout, I know it. So that first thing just gives you an installed base, which is good. The second thing that we loved, and the reason we love the name, is I think, anytime you want to start any kind of company today, you have to come up with some cockamamie manufactured name. That's some blend of two words that sort of has a vowel at the end, and maybe it's got some cool thing. Then you got to make some logo that kind of matches it. And then you just have, okay, what is this thing doing? You have a name that relatively rare has a positive association right off the bat. Everyone has a positive association with Scouts, whether there's, whether it's Lewis and Clark or whether it's a trend scout or someone who knows the latest restaurants or someone that climbs mountains, like Scout. You know what it means, positive aspiration. That's a good thing. The other thing we noticed and loved, and to be quite blunt about it, basically the archetype of every SUV is a Scout, even the name. So Explorer, Pathfinder, Discovery, Blazer, Trailblazer, Forerunner, go on and on and on. They basically just take a Scout name and it's another name for a Scout. So we love the fact, yeah, exactly. You can go on and on. It's actually a good game. And so, we think we have the original, we have the real deal. And yeah, that's what makes it so exciting. The final thing which the research confirmed, which was exciting, is yes, of course, there's a lot of people who've never heard of it. And what you do is, obviously, they'd say Scout, maybe they heard something, maybe that. But then when you married it to a product and they saw the product, scores went through the roof. So that's exactly what you want. And look, I think there's a thing that says, oh, the brand needs to do everything, 100% trend. No, really all the brand needs to do is get someone to the door and then say, open the door. And then that's our jobs once they open the door. Make a great car, design great experiences, do marketing. But it gives us a heck of a head start, particularly a credible one, as opposed to some manufactured name. You call up an agency and say, I need a name. Give me a name that sounds like adventure, but is rugged, a little bit of American. It's outdoors. Make sure it's okay. I'm going to forget it. This is way cooler.
Well, for you, what an interesting journey. Speaking of Pathfinders or Scouts, that has led you here. It's been a bit of a winding road. It has not been the so-called normal journey of an auto executive. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say in some ways it's been winding, but I think, life is, a direct highway of life is no way to go. The magic is off the beaten path. So, look, I think, as you know, my career started back in the mid 90s at Mercedes-Benz, and then, it laddered up all the way to here. But it's been a fun path. I've loved every minute of it, without a doubt.
Well, but you could write a book on the adventures that you've had. You started at a public relations agency, didn't you?
Before Mercedes, exactly. I was at a company called Burson Marsteller. I think it's still around, doing PR for Owens Corning fiberglass. So I remember that stuff quite well, and all the R values and everything else. And then, yeah, I got into the automotive business. It was 94, 95. I got a call from a colleague. I was living in the city, living in Manhattan. And of course, Mercedes was up in New Jersey at the time. And he said, yeah, we've got this job. It's called alternative media specialist. No one knows what to do. And can you come figure it out? So this was basically how to figure out the internet for Mercedes-Benz at the time. And what a fun job. And, so sort of CompuServe, AOL, you remember those things. And then, of course,
for sure,
the web and the way we went. But yeah, that started this magic journey. I got into it. And the first thing I said was, yeah, I'm more of a New York City person. This is out in Jersey. I'll work here for a year. I'll get Mercedes on my resume. Then I'll go back in and see what happens. And of course, this business, like it happened to you, gets under your skin. And I loved it. And then away I went from Mercedes off to Audi, and away you go.
Well, and you went from Mercedes, where you were very much appreciated, to Audi, but not just Audi riding smoothly, Audi in turmoil. Describe those times.
I can remember the interview, and I should have known something was amiss during the interview. They always interviewed me like at auto shows and hotels and phenomenal locations. So I was always like, wow, this is kind of fun. This is great. Then I finally got into the headquarters. And yeah, a few details they may have left out. Details like they were losing $400 million a year. Details like budgets were being cut left and right, and on and on. So yeah, it was my first real experience of a challenge, a real operational challenge. But look, I enjoy that stuff. What I said to myself at the time is I remember thinking quite clearly, my dad, as you may recall, he bought a 100 LS in 71 or 72. So he was like an early Audi dude. And I remember looking at it when I was at Mercedes-Benz, and I said, how could it be that these guys make such cool cars, such a cool brand, yet they don't sell anything? Like, this thing must be able to be figured out. And then, of course, yeah, they made cool cars. They still made cool cars. We did some great things to the brand to get it woken up a little bit. The dealers got jumping in, and then away you went. But it was a great story, and a lot of the characters who were involved there as well. And It was a great thing. But yeah, that was 3 to 4 years of absolute pain. Then you throw in the financial crisis of 2008, and it was a little scary there for a little bit, for sure.
And then eventually you go to Volkswagen, and then there's this little thing called Dieselgate, which pops up. What was going through your mind then, Scott? You can handle anything at this point.
Well, yeah, that was brutal. I mean, I think I was at Audi at the time. I was the president of Audi at the time, and I can remember the first reports. It was the 2-liter that came first, not the 3-liter, and just a disaster. And the reason it was disaster was, first, just to put on a personal level, is you work for this company for, I don't know, a long time at that time, not almost 10 years. You commit a lot. You commit people to buy the car. You commit dealers to invest in franchise, and something like this happened. It was unfathomable. And I remember a conversation with myself and a conversation with the team. And one part of the conversation is like, you know what, this just stinks. I'm leaving. Enough of this stuff. I want nothing to do with this, right? I didn't do it. And why am I at auto shows being chased and followed around in phone calls? Or you say to yourself, you know what, there's some great people who work at this company. This is a great brand, great dealers. They had nothing to do with it. Let's fix this thing. And that's what the team did. That conversation was only a couple hours, and people said, let's get after it. And one of the things I'm proudest of is we didn't go backwards on sales. We didn't go backwards on pretty much anything. And the customers stayed loyal. And then, to your point, then I went to Volkswagen, and Volkswagen at the stage was much more into the fix this thing stage. So the news was out, the damage was done, but we had, what some people forget is you're running 2 car companies, which is hard enough. One is the tough car company of selling cars and building a brand. The other one was, what do you do with 450,000 cars plus a monitorship on top? So to keep the company focused on running a business with a monitorship, with fixing, repairing, storing, reselling, repaperworking 450,000 cars was unreal. And some of the employees I worked with there, and what they did to go see that thing through and fix it and do it right, is one of, those employees are incredible, man. They all know who they are. So, yeah, but, earlier in my career, when you used to hit speed bumps, like, I don't know, an ad would be late or a meeting would be off, that you'd get all crazy. Now, after you've been through some of these things, you're you're quite relaxed with whatever drama is coming.
Patience and perspective now.
Oh, big time, big time.
Well, and has come out of the situation as a completely changed company, right? I mean, it'd be interesting to know your perspective on all that now that you're in a different pathway.
100% culturally a different company. 100%. I think it was a painful cultural wake-up call. Let's call it that way. But it was one that happened. And if I look at the company as it is today, was then culturally, because that's where all of this stems from. It all stems from culture, as you know quite well. It's transformative, and I think the company's done a incredible amount of things from what its pivot to electrification and what it's doing around the world. But there's better ways to learn that lesson, I think, than TDI. But no, I'm quite proud, honestly, of the company and the people to navigate through this.
It must make like anything, like starting a new car company is easy after all that.
It's about difficulty is about the same, but let's say motivation is a whole different thing, obviously. But I think it speaks to the culture of the company and the boldness and the ability of this company to dream and the ambition. And I think, honestly, a company that always wants to make icons. I think if you look at the Volkswagen Group, whether it's the 911 or whether it's the bus or whether it's the Beetle or whether it's the TT, you know all these cars quite well. You know, the company makes icons. And that's exactly what we see Scout is, and we want to restore and return and bring back and have this icon out there. So it's a cool thing for a company to think that way, because I think a lot of car companies really think in the margins. They're noodling on little things, which is fine. It's good to be in the margins, but you know, the group wants to be on the pitch, doing great things, making icons, and that's what I love about the company. It's ambitious, it dreams, it goes for it.
For those who don't know, tell me a little bit about how and when Volkswagen secured the Scout brand from International.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date, but it was the acquisition. As you know, we have a heavy truck division called Traton. Traton, of course, acquired Navistar. Navistar then had the rights to International. So this was sometime, don't quote me exactly, maybe 18, 19, somewhere around there was the acquisition. You know, if you think about it, you know, it was a company that sort of started as International Harvester and then dispersed, right? You have IH sitting in another company somewhere. You had International, you had Navistar, get pieces here. And so it acquired it looking more at the heavy truck business. But then, of course, you know, it always had this name and logo. When it officially went over to Scout Motors as we know it today, I think, as you know, that was in September of 22. So that's basically my first day. And when we registered Scout Motors and then registered in Delaware, and away we go. But the official acquisition was during the Navistar Traton thing. When it came to life as now the business that it is today was September of 22. And when I look at it that, you know, if I look at September of 22 and then I see here we are now in June, to think of a car is on its way, a company's being staffed, we have a factory that's being built as we speak. That's crazy. So I always think, oh, we're too slow. But if you look back, you're like, whoa, we've moved pretty far. So you have to also be a little less harsh on yourself. But look, that's how I am.
A $2 billion assembly plant in Blythewood, South Carolina, near Columbia, right? To
Exactly.
manufacture battery electric SUVs and pickups starting in 2026, 4,000 estimated jobs, right, Scott?
Exactly. 45 JPH plant, 200,000+ cars, 4,000 employees. So exactly. You know, but I can't say enough good things about the interaction, honestly, we had with the state. It's a site we had looked at. We looked at 74 sites, I think, as you've seen reported, Midwest, South, pretty much across the country. And this was a place between, you know, obviously the infrastructure is quite strong. We think the talented workforce is there, a motivated workforce is there. And then the government had a system in place. Look, they wanted to get in to the business of making EVs. So I think you know quite well the manufacturing expertise in the state. There's a number of battery plants now in the States as well, recycling plants as well in the state. I think also, though, we have a sweet spot of a location. I think, as you know, the more coastal South Carolina has Volvo and Mercedes. Of course, if you go off to the other side, you have BMW and Spartanburg. We think in that, mid area there in Columbia, there's a talented workforce. And look, you want to sort of be in the automotive business, you want to be the leader in town. So you want to draw the best talent. I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to be a big player. We're going to be a leader. You don't want to be too close to competition where the talent's sort of circulating back. So I think we thread the needle just perfectly to get this done.
Describe that process of finding a Class A manufacturing team. Is it scouring talent within the VW group to get the best? Is it poaching talent from others? What are those steps?
Yeah, look, it's a combination. Without a doubt, it starts with some talent from within the group. I think, as you can imagine, we have 150-ish plants across the globe. I think one of the assets that Scout has is the backing of the Volkswagen Group from capital and from talent. So certainly we've taken advantage of some of that talent, without a doubt. What we've seen right off the bat is just the announcement alone has drawn the talent. So as you see in of these job postings, you're seeing, and we're getting a very good draw of local in-market talent. That's how it goes. And then the third one is absolutely right. We've got to market. We've got to promote. We've got to have headhunters, specific firms dedicated to drawing in the manufacturing talent. And that will sort of be the next level that we go to. I think from what we're doing now, which is basically layout, site prep, construction, that's one form of talent. Then that needs to migrate into planning, and then from planning, of course, the factory itself. So that's all going to come in tiers, but certainly at this phase where we are now, strong planning, strong heads of the units, and then of course the site prep and everything else is rocking and rolling. But if I look at some of the things to be proud of what we do in America, the speed of how this country just gets to action on making this plan happen. If you compare it to Europe and some other things, it's mind-boggling. I mean, when you see the progress month to month, day to day, it's breathtaking. But so we should not be naive about this. I think America is without a doubt in the midst of probably one of the single greatest industrial transformations, period. I think you've seen all the announcements. What's happening, both semiconductor, both battery, both manufacturing, both this transformation. It's definitely putting, I would say, a lot of stress in the system. I think the opportunity is magnificent. I think what's happening with America building things again is great, but certainly it's led to, being a competitive, challenging environment, but I view it positively.
Is it hard finding people?
Look, it always is getting great people. I think, but if you have a great proposition at a great company, and if I look at, let's say, Scout on what we've been able to do, hold the factory for a second, we've been able to draw great talent. Because I think, look, if you think about what people want, very few people want to say, well, I just want to go into the office, fill out my little forms, check my clock, and go walk away. I think people want to do great things. They want to sort of be like, I was there. I was there when this happened. I was there when this happened. And I think people see Scout, they see what we're doing. And this is a I was there moment. I mean, think about it. If you sort of put the market and the moment together, the market, electrified pickups, rugged SUVs, it's there. The moment, reindustrialization America, the Inflation Reduction Act, everything that's happening. And then the magic, restore an icon, bring back Scout. The big trend towards getting outdoors and the resto mods and all this kind of thing. It's like you couldn't put a better formula together to frankly do something great. And I think, one of the things that gives me a lot of confirmation, you speak to some employees and you're interviewing them and they know the story profoundly. And so it's like, boom. But some that don't know it at all. And you spend 2 to 3 sentences and boom, it glues together. So it's a universally understood and embraced story, which is what you want with a company. It's what you want with a product. If you have to get all convoluted to try to explain it and then convince and you lost the plot. And people are getting the plot and they're liking it. But no, talent is a precious, precious thing. And it's not easy to get great talent.
What's your management style? Are you hand-holding those who you pick or finding young talent who want to prove themselves?
Young talent who wants to prove themselves. Look, I think right now we're a combination. I think the core group is executives I've worked with before. I've known them and just point them in the right direction and they go. Rocket ships going to the moon. And so and then, look, I think my management style is pretty clear for the most part. I think the first thing, you have to inspire and motivate. You have to give people a reason for why they're doing what they're doing and excite them and motivate them. I think that's an important thing. I think second thing, you have to lay out expectations. I think there's this myth, well, Americans don't like tough conversations. You can't, no, you have to lay out expectations because that's what everyone wants. They want those expectations. And then honestly, you have to look upon them meeting those expectations because look, doing a great company, doing a great product is a collective effort. Everyone has to pull and everyone has to move forward on this thing. But no, I'm not a pedantic manager that's overseeing each and every comma, each and every across the board. You have to hire people with imagination and vigor. And look, if you look at what success is, when you're managing something as chaotic as this, many of these things have not been done before. You have to hire executives that are able to figure things out. It's not as if build this widget, this is how it's been last the 20 years. It's no, that's the North Star, get us there. And great employees figure those things out. And that's exactly what we are doing right now. And you have to hire people who are very comfortable with that. And some people are not. They want to be very guided, very dictated, very linear. And no, it's not going to work in this kind of environment.
This is Cars and Culture, and I had the chance to live and work in Germany for 4 years. You've had the chance to work in Germany. I'm not sure you've lived in Germany. Maybe you have. Yes, you
I
have.
did a long time ago. Yep.
Yeah. So the German culture is one of a lot of things being very planned out and there being a vision for a road ahead and not a lot of deviation, if I can say that. And I am German, so okay. Not saying I'm that way, but I do understand it. A startup is nothing of the sort. I mean, the bends and twists and ups and downs, and I mean the plan is ripped up perhaps on a weekly basis. How do you tell the folks back in Germany it'll all be okay?
Look, I think sometimes the poor Germans get a bad rap. They get this rap that says, they don't move unless there's a 20-step plan, and then they put their shoes on if there's a 40-step plan. I get it. Believe me, I've worked with German companies a long time. I think the first thing, look, you do have to establish trust. Without a doubt, trust builds confidence, full stop. I think, look, the fundamentals of where we are going and what we want to achieve are quite clear. And the board's on board with that, and the executives are on board with that. Certainly the execution of that, to your point, is not linear. It's not linear by any means because there's all sorts of things that happen. So I think as long as everyone's galvanized around the mission and what we want to do and what we want to achieve, and it's heading in the right direction, they're accepting of, let's say, as you say, deviations that move around on the front. I think where you lose total confidence is if you say you're going north and then the entire team is running south. They go, what's going on here? So I think that, which is not what's happening at Scout. But without a doubt, it's not as, let's say, as linear and pedantic as running a company that's fixed and all the processes fixed. But they're quite aware of that. And look, you also have to, as you know quite well, time sort of demand that. If you look at the Volkswagen Group, it's undergoing a breathtaking transformation with electrification, a breathtaking transformation with things like PowerCo and Cariad and on and on. So I think, look, the executives have become quite adept at managing challenges, managing change, managing transition and transformation. Because I think you have to also give the company a little bit of credit. If I look at, going down to the factory in Puebla and stuff like that, it's like, look, they were one of the first automotive plants, period, bar none. They got into the Mexican market like the 1950s. So, it's a company that has a history of pioneering. It's a company that has a history of taking chances, going to markets like Mexico in the 1950s, which no one was doing. So it's a company, honestly, it's adept at that stuff. And the other thing that doesn't hurt is obviously you want to be updating, you want to be communicating. If you hit a challenge in the road, communicate it, full stop. I think what Americans sometimes do, and it's a management style that can sort of gloss over an awful lot of things, it's a bad idea. With something like this, you want to be transparent. And look, that's exactly what we're doing. And then the team's on board. So it's cool.
Some have asked, how will these vehicles be sold? How will they be
Yeah,
sold?
this is a popular question, and one I promise we will give an answer to. But look, without being facetious on this front, look, let's be honest. As I said, we are ramping up a company, we are building a car, and we are building a factory. When we solidify and stabilize that, then it's like, all right, what's the next? We've got to get this to a consumer. Okay, let's take that leap. But not announcing anything. But look, this is an independent company, and we'll make a smart, independent decision.
And you are independent. You are a separate entity from the existing Volkswagen Group of America.
Exactly. It's a LLC registered in Delaware, reporting to our shareholder, and our shareholder right now is Volkswagen AG. The reason we did that, though, honestly, was a chance for us to give us a lot of strategic opportunities, potentially outside capital, potentially strategic partners or investors, potentially capital markets. And it gives us, a lot of flexibility in terms of how we navigate the company. To me, Jason, there's sort of a very simple formula that if we do it well, it's a chance of a lifetime. If we miss it, then, we missed it. I don't think we will. But, first and foremost, restore an iconic, magical brand and modernize it. And I think we can do that. The second thing, take the power of the group, which is the capital, the massive experience with logistics and purchasing power and factories and ramping up factories at speed, at scale. Of course, keeping out some of the things that happen to gigantic companies, right? Keeping out the bureaucracy, increasing the speed. The third portion is that independence, which can allow us to do acquisitions, take partnerships, and be smart and navigate and do a little bit of what let's say, startups have done to the traditionals. And I think with that, the power of this is clean slate. The power of this is no massive legacy cost. And the power of this is to be able to make smart strategic decisions. I think the truth, unfortunately, of the automotive decisions is many of them are compromised. Rarely do you make a pure play decision in automotive because you've got so many if-then equations behind everything, behind factories, behind all sorts of stuff. And so if you can really have a clean slate with your decision being more pure, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what we're experiencing, and I think it's going to be special.
You've really done some innovative marketing tactics that have been used globally. I'm thinking of the long content product videos showing off the capabilities of Audi at a time when that really wasn't being done. Does this give you a chance to do some really cool, innovative stuff?
Oh, big time. Big time, big time. And we will. And, not sharing any of it now, but I think we have the ingredients to do that. We have a cult following car. We have this massive moment. We have an iconic brand that's being restored. If you think of it simplistically, this is a brand that people will be rooting for, and we want them to root for us. And so I think the playbook is wide open and one we're going to start to turn up. I think we'll turn it up, let's say in the spring and summer when we show the concept cars, take reservations and start to get things moving. That's when we'll bring it to life. But all the ingredients are there. And look, the inspiration for what we're doing is, look, I want someone to look back in 40 to 50 years. And it's like, yeah, we're not just launching a car to I want this to be the next great iconic American brand. The way people think of Levi's, the way people think of Apple, the way these iconic American brands, that's where we want to be. That's what we're doing. And we want to market like one too.
How long is your to-do list? I mean, this thing must fill volumes.
Where's my, here's my, this is what I do. I got about 20 of these. This is my Scout journal. And yeah, I got list and list and list.
How do we get one of those? I want one of those Scout journals.
Oh, I got them. I got like 20 of them already filled. Those are gone. And then I got the active one here. So no, it's a long list. But what we have, which I think is a very smart thing, is we drafted, I don't know, about a year or so ago, basically the top 10 list. And these are the core things that have to happen. So in each one of our management meetings, which we hold weekly, you always have to circle back to that. Always circle back, because these 10 things are basically oxygen. They don't happen. Yeah, don't worry about whatever the catering at some event you're at, because if you don't have this, there is no event. So we do circle back. We do keep focused, but you do have to be careful not to be going down rabbit holes, which you can do on something like this. But no, I think we circle back with good clarity on these 10 things.
Are you able to sleep at night, or do you have too much to do?
No, I sleep at night. Definitely. I'm a sleeper. When you look, you have 3 young kids, this kind of job, plus I stay active. I definitely sleep at night.
Look 5 years down the line. What does success look like?
Look, 5 years down the line, these beautiful, stunning cars are rolling down of a beautiful factory. So first and foremost, 4,000 employees, highly motivated, transformational change in their communities, beautiful cars coming down the line. Hopefully about a year waiting list, hopefully. And then, the next great iconic American car is here. And that's what it looks like. I can see it. There's a long journey and a long ride to get there. And look, I want to see a few simple things, right? I'm dying for this moment when either I'm driving by and I see one in a driveway, or I'm going to pick the kids up at school, or I'm going shopping and I see one and I see the first customer and we speak to the first customer, and hopefully, and I feel very convinced, they'll say, I love this car. And it's as simple as that. I want to have that moment where I see it and the person says they love the car, and then I want to have hundreds of thousands of more lovers, and then we go.
You said America. Is it your role to also help VW and Scout succeed in other markets, or is it an unknown mark elsewhere?
No, we will put our focus on the United States and Canada. I think, as you know, it's a massive profit pool. I think if you look at the globe, China, Asia's 30 billion, US is 30 billion, Europe's 30 billion. So there's enough, let's say, opportunity in the market. You know it quite well. So we're going to profoundly focus on US and Canada. I think there is opportunities to export. It would be a second priority. We'll certainly take them. But what you don't want to do, and this is a very good example of not losing focus, you can say, okay, we want to internationalize, we want to sow these other markets, and you can end up putting 30% of your effort on 2% of the opportunity. And we want to make sure we put our max effort on the opportunity. The opportunity's here, and that's where we'll focus. But no, I do see export potential. Phase 2, we'll take that on.
And a final question, Scott. Dutch Mandel, who's the executive producer for this program, wants to know if the Cars and Culture long-term Volkswagen ID Buzz is still slated for delivery in South Carolina, or does he have to change his expectation for a new Scout?
Look, it's true. I did promise him an ID Buzz a long time ago. So no, I'm going to fulfill my promise and get him an ID Buzz down in. Is he golfing or swimming or sailing? What is he writing his memoirs? What's Dutch up
He's
to?
booking guests for this program.
No, I think I made a promise to get him an ID Buzz. I will do that. I got to talk to the Volkswagen gang, and then his second car will then be a Scout for sure.
I appreciate your openness and candor, and you're a startup guy, and we love startup guys. So thank you for being on this program.
Awesome. Jason, always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks again to my guest today, Scout brand boss Scott Keogh. And to see my interview with Scott, go to the Cars and Culture YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to see more than 100 interviews. And thanks for listening to Cars and Culture. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and on Instagram at Cars and Culture SXM, and on Twitter at Cars and Culture. I'm Jason Stein. We'll see you down the road.